I'm Leah Lawrence.
And I'm her husband, Mitch Lawrence.
And you are listening to Tailgate Tales, a special series of the Southern Spirits Podcast.
Each week, we're going to hear a story from a school in the Southeastern Conference. So which one are we going to hear about this week, Leah?
Today, we're talking about the University of Mississippi, better known as Ole Miss.
All right. Well, this week, Ole Miss is going to play Louisiana Monroe at 3 o'clock on October 6th. So good luck to y'all. And let's learn a little bit about the mascot at Ole Miss. This is going to take a while. Ole Miss is known as the Rebels. And for a very long time, they had a mascot named Colonel Reb. It was basically an old Confederate soldier or plantation owner. Nobody really knows.
Plantation owner is what it looks like.
Yeah, well, it could have been either, essentially.
He looks like Colonel Sanders, basically. An angry Colonel Sanders.
And a lot of Confederate battle flags and that sort of thing were, involved. Well, that mascot was finally removed in 2003.
Took you long enough, y'all.
Some backlash, but quite a few people also wanted to keep it. But anyway, I don't think that they had a sideline mascot for a long time, because in 2010 they switched to a mascot called the Rebel Black Bear.
It should have been Admiral Akbar, y'all.
Well, that was part of the vote, but it didn't win. So
they were wrong.
The Rebel Black Bear took it home. Well, since then, in August of this year, Ole Miss has changed yet again. They're still the Rebels, but their mascot is now named Landshark Tony. And, okay, everybody thought it's ridiculous, but there is a story to it, and everybody who thought it was ridiculous is probably going to go, oh, well, okay, I guess it's fine then.
It's still ridiculous. I've seen the picture of the mascot, and he looks dumb.
Okay, well, here's the story from the Ole Miss website, because Saturday Down South does not have updated information.
All right.
This is from the Ole Miss website, and it's a long one, so stick with me for a minute. The spirit of the Landshark dates back to 2008, when Ole Miss won the Cotton Bowl after 4 straight losing seasons. In a moment of celebration that season, senior linebacker and Iraq war veteran Tony Fein, I'm not sure, F-E-I-N, made the legendary fins up gesture after a game-changing play. The rest, of course, is history.
Pause. What does fins up mean?
They put their hand on their head and do like this.
That's a mohawk.
Well, yeah, it's a shark fin. That's essentially what it is.
Okay.
Back to the quote. Coaches, players, and fans alike all rallied behind Fein's emotional gesture, galvanizing the Landshark both on and off the football field. Even after Fein tragically passed away in 2009, the Ole Miss community continued to honor him in his Landshark spirit, the spirit of a war veteran who was ravenous for victory and fiercely loyal to his team.
Oh, damn. Now I feel bad for making fun of it.
Thank you. I told you that's how you were going to feel.
Oh. But still, I'm sorry. That mascot suit is terrible. I could make a better one with my eyeballs closed.
Well, the Landshark
scary, and
is
I do not
named
like it.
Tony after this man. And again, I'm sorry if I'm saying his name wrong. It's either Fein or Fein.
Or maybe Fiend?
I think it's Fein because it's F-E-I-N, but I said Fein the whole time. But it's Landshark Tony, and this was Tony Fein. Fine, whatever. And, it was his gesture that even then, see, the Landshark was part of the mascot vote when they voted for the Black Bear and Admiral Akbar back in 2010, but it didn't win. It was a fan favorite, but it didn't win, which leads me to believe that the Black Bear, I'm pretty sure, did not win the vote, and it was just kind of selected.
Everybody thought the Black Bear was dumb anyway.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but the Landshark was part of it back then because of this guy. Mm-hmm. Because of this gesture and everything. And Ole Miss has done this gesture since then. Okay. Because he did that, and he was, it's a whole Landshark thing that had to do with their defense back then, and I don't know too much about it. But
I don't know what a Landshark is either.
Because it's not an actual thing, but at least it has a fun costume.
It's scary. But I like it better than the Black Bear, because the Black Bear's just sort of like, oh, what are we going to make ourselves not racist with? A bear.
And not even just a bear, a black bear. So it's double not racist.
No, I think that, like I said, I think it was just more of a panic, we've got to get something in here kind of thing, and LucasArts probably wouldn't let him use Admiral Akbar. So at least the Landshark sort of has a history with it, and it's honoring like a veteran. That's awesome. But once again, y'all, up your mascot like suit game, because it's creepy.
This guy, Tony Fein, he served in Iraq, and then he came to Ole Miss and played there. So he was a veteran when he did this, and then died like a year later, apparently.
Oh, that blows.
So it's weird. But now he's forever Landshark Tony, I guess. And also, I'm still drinking Monkey Knot by Straight to Ale, close by in Huntsville, Alabama. Get you some if you have some around you, because it's fantastic. Well, that's all I've got for my mascot and beer section, Leah.
Alrighty, well, I guess it's time to tell you a story about Ole Miss.
Let's
and
get
it is
into
actually about the college this time.
Are we sure, though?
It
Are you really going to do it? It's about a little girl that once passed the college on the street, and she went, oh, I'd like to go there one day, but then she died, and her ghost went there. That's what happened.
I mean, it's a great story, but no, that is not what we're talking about.
Wouldn't that be great?
No, Ole Miss has plenty of stories, so this is just one of the big ones. So we're going to be talking about the Lyceum and the Confederate cemetery that's on the campus.
What is a Lyceum?
Funny you should ask, Mitch.
Yay!
The Lyceum is a building. It's the only surviving of the original buildings that were built on campus, from what I can tell. Because there had been a fire and a bunch of stuff. Anyway, but this is it's surviving from the day that it was built. It was started in July of 1846, and it was completed 2 years later in 1848. It has, I'm sure you've seen the building in pictures and stuff from Ole Miss, just because this is the iconic building that they show. It's got it's the Greek Revival building. It has those 6 white columns on the front.
Mm-hmm. So it just means big building, Lyceum.
I'm sure.
No, I'm asking.
Yes.
Is that really what it means?
I really don't know what that word means.
Okay.
It's Greek, and I don't. Right. I was a Latin kid. I don't know. I'm sorry.
It's
I
basically
can't.
Greek.
It's not the same thing. Mm-hmm. But like I said, the Lyceum is the oldest building that survives on campus. It was the original administration building, as well as it held all of the classes at one point. It's been all sorts of stuff, but right now it's still administration. And so it's a big, famous, popular building. It's had all sorts of crazy shit happen to it, in it, around it, in front of it. In 1962, I believe, that was the site of the race riots that happened when James Meredith was the first person to desegregate Ole Miss, and he actually wasn't even there. They had him hiding out on the other side of campus, but people thought he was there. So up until like the most recent...
In the Lyceum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Up until the most recent renovation of the building, you could still see the bullet holes from the riot that happened.
Well, that's wonderful.
So like I said, this building particularly has had a lot of shit go down in it, but the part that we're talking about specifically is during the Civil War. Now, during the Civil War, Ole Miss shut down because over 80% of its student population quit school and went off to fight the war as part of the Confederacy. Yeah.
Goodness.
There's actually the big Confederate monument that's in the circle. So like they've got the historic district. So it's the Lyceum is the centerpiece. There's the circle. It has a bunch of the old buildings there. And in the very center of that circle is a Confederate, or it's a monument that has a Confederate soldier looking out on the distance, kind of, just standard old statue thing. And that actually is the place where, according to legend, all of the students that decided to quit and join the Confederate Army, that's where they put all their books. They just set them down and walked off and went to go sign up. So that's what that particular monument is supposed to be the site of. But regardless of whether that's true or not, the Civil War did, in fact, make a bunch of... a lot of it happened around that area. So it was used as... back up. Okay. This is a lot of history, and it's a lot of... But anyway...
what is a lot of
just uncomfortable history because,
well, you just tell it as it is.
I'm working on it. So the Battle of Shiloh is really what brought Ole Miss into it, just the campus itself. Because like I said, it was shut down during the war, and one of the teachers had been put over it to basically protect it and make sure it didn't get burned down and all of that stuff. So there was still faculty on campus, but they were all living in like the observatory. They had all of their families there, and they were all supposed to be looking after it. Well, the Battle of Shiloh happened, and it turned out that basically it caused a lot of need for a field hospital. So a bunch of the buildings on campus were converted into field hospitals for the Confederate soldiers. So
this can only go well from here.
Yeah, the soldier hospital thing never goes well. But yeah, so basically they got it wouldn't have been a call because that's not a thing. A letter? I'm assuming a letter.
Telegram, sir.
I don't think that was a thing either.
A little boy. Sir.
Oh, but anyway, they got a letter saying, we have all of these soldiers, they're coming for you, prepare the buildings because you've got 700 wounded soldiers that are heading your way, basically. So everybody in the surrounding town of Oxford, which is where Ole Miss is,
right.
Everybody in the surrounding town gathered old mattresses and beds and cots and blankets and just anything that could be spared from their own homes. They brought it in and they basically made, hospitals out of several buildings. They used the chapel, the Lyceum, 3 dormitories, and another professor residence kind of thing. So they cleared them all out. They got beds going. They had everything ready to do. They also set up a morgue because that is necessary.
Yeah, that's part of it.
They called that place the Dead House, but that particular building was demolished, and Foley Hall, I believe, is what is built on top of that location now, and that's a whole nother story.
Well, let's not get
morgues,
into it.
What are you gonna do? But basically, they had all hands on deck, especially the women that were left in the town of Oxford, because most of the people were off fighting in the war, etc. So it left just women to be the nurses and that kind of thing, as well as slaves. So any of the surrounding plantations that could spare slaves or whatever, they sent them to these field hospitals, and they were triage. They were forced to assist the nurses and stuff like that. So not only was it mostly women taking care of these people, it was also slaves taking care of these wounded Confederate soldiers. So like I said, there's a lot of weird energy that is residual, I know, to this particular place. Out of the I'm trying to find the number. How many thousands? Okay, they treated over 2,000 patients on the Ole Miss campus during the period. It's from 1862 to 64. And of that, only about 700 of them died, which not a great number, but
that's pretty good for that time, I'd say.
It's more than it. It's less than I expected. That's a lot of fucking people out of 2,000. But it's
less than half.
It's a better rate than I would have expected.
Yeah.
But honestly, the hospital records were destroyed after Union forces captured Oxford.
Oh, that's great.
In 1963. So there's none of the records really survive to this day. So there's a lot of stuff. They're not exactly sure of those numbers. But anyway, moving on to the cemetery portion of it. Now, there is a Confederate cemetery on campus, and it has 700 graves that they know of. Goodness. They did ground penetrating radar, and it shows that there are 700 individual graves.
Ugh,
and at one point,
fucking creepy.
They each had a marker on the grave, but I don't know if this is a true story, but I've seen it referenced in several places, but that it did have initially markers for each grave. It's just a big open field with a monument in the middle right now. Because in 1900, they believed that the landscapers of the area needed to trim the grass and all that stuff, and they were tired of mowing around the little markers. So they took all the markers up, they mowed it, and they didn't remember where everything went. So they just tossed that shit out, and they made a big monument.
That's awful. But
know,
Jesus
right?
Christ, that's funny.
It's just real bad.
Just be the landscapers. They go, let's pick this shit up because we'll cut it in one swoop. We'll put it all back down, and then they get done. It's like,
oh fuck, yeah.
Anybody remember where this shit goes? Or the guy that took him up got fired, and he's just like, well, fuck y'all then. And he just left and didn't tell anybody where the shit's supposed to go.
I know, right?
Well, I guess let's just not try and throw them out.
Sucks, man. But yeah, so as far as I can tell, like that's the folklore of it anyway. Whether that actually
really
happened
funny.
or not, I don't know. But it was rumored for a long time that it was a mass grave, but it is not a mass grave. There are 700 individual graves dug. They're not all piled in there together. They're individual. It was a field just like you would see it like Arlington or something, like set out like that. It's just some asshat accidentally fucked it up for everybody.
So those were the 700 that died in the field hospital?
That died in the field hospital, yes. Okay. And initially, I believe, like 11 Union soldiers were also interred there, but after...
We can't have that.
No, I mean, after the war was over, the bodies were reclaimed and buried because they knew who they were, and they were reclaimed and buried elsewhere.
They hadn't taken them up to mow the grass yet.
No.
That's good.
But anyway, they do have a monument at the center of this cemetery. One of the local chapter of the Daughters of the Confederacy put up a brick wall around the cemetery, and they put up the big monument in the center. And the monument actually has a bunch of names of people that they know are buried there, but not everybody was known. The records weren't great. So like I said, there's maybe a couple hundred names on the monument, but the vast majority of the soldiers that are buried there are unknown.
Well, that's also sad. Well, did the markers, I know we don't really know much about the markers, but maybe the markers had names for everybody.
It's
or
possible,
maybe it was just a stone.
Or it was just a number, and they had a register of what each number corresponded to, because a lot of like prison cemeteries are done that way. I honestly don't know. That's conjecture on my part, but I mean, I would assume they had something going on other than like, this is a big field.
Well, there were a lot of places that just marked it with, a rock.
Yeah.
This is where somebody's buried, which somebody walking through the field is not going to know that, but the person who put it there will know that. I don't know.
I would assume it was probably just like a wooden post or a stake or a cross at most.
Yeah.
But
too much
work. It either way, the markers are gone, and it's a big field, and there's a monument there. Now, when it comes to ghostly presences, they do say that the big story is that on Halloween night, which is coming up, y'all.
Yay!
On Halloween night at midnight, all of the soldiers that died in the hospitals, the Lyceum, and all that, their spirits walk the halls of the Lyceum, and they walk into the circle that we talked about around where that statue is, and they walk all the way to the graveyard, and they lay down in their grave.
We can go. Oxford's just a few hours from here.
Yeah, it's not far, but
it's a Wednesday though. I don't know about that.
Oh, it is a Wednesday.
Is it Halloween on a Wednesday this year?
It is.
Yeah, fuck that. Never mind.
Can we get the ghost to like postpone the march till Saturday?
Okay.
Ghosts?
A few years ago, I remember it when I was a child being told that, okay, things have changed. It could have just been my parents. I don't know. But you don't trick or treat on Halloween on a weeknight anymore. You do it like there's a designated weekend. So can we get the ghosts to move to that trick or treat weekend? And then we can all just go and watch them do their little prancing. They might have candy.
They're not going to have candy.
They might.
But yeah, so if you're ever on Ole Miss's campus and you're interested in a little bit of history, it's a good place to go. The Lyceum is chock full of history. Lots of terrible history. I
was going to say, there's lots of history. A lot of it will probably make you uncomfortable if you have a soul. But
yeah.
It might not make you uncomfortable. And then we know that you are either a robot or a bad person. It could be both. You could be a bad robot person.
Also true. But like I said, a big fight for civil rights happened there. That was really cool. There's a mildly creepy statue of James Meredith there. James Meredith actually has said he does not like that statue either. So anyway,
kind of like Stephen King doesn't like any of his movies that are based on his books.
Well, that's because those aren't good. But
a lot of them are really good. He just doesn't care for them. He's just a asshole.
Hey, I like Stephen King. You hush. But anyway, yeah, that's the story of the Lyceum and the Confederate Cemetery. And if you catch any cool, creepy pictures of the cemetery, send them our way.
Yeah, send us a postcard with them.
I'd like to know if you've ever had an experience. I know several people that went to Ole Miss, so if you've
Did you
had
ask
it,
them?
I did, but
No.
that. But anyway, if you do have any stories from Ole Miss, let us know. I'd like to hear about them because apparently that entire place is haunted with all sorts of fun stuff. I didn't even touch the William Faulkner ghost, so
Don't touch it. Gross.
That not like that,
Yeah.
Mitchell.
William Faulkner's ghost is at Ole Miss?
Yeah, his house is like right down the street.
I don't know any of this.
Roanoke. We'll talk about it.
Oh, just
It's gonna
not
be
today.
great. Not today.
Mm.
Sorry.
Hashtag teaser.
So yeah, for all you William Faulkner fans, eventually we'll get there.
What did Faulkner write?
As I Lay Dying is his big one. Bunch of other shit.
What's that about?
A dude that's dying.
Well, that sounds terrible. I'd rather
And
read
his
Tuesdays
family
with
comes
Maury.
to the funeral, and yeah.
Did you ever read Tuesdays with Maury?
I did as
It's a good book.
I read Tuesdays with Maury as an 11th grader, and our band director had just died of ALS.
Oh, Jesus,
Yeah.
Leah, come on.
It was one of the hardest things that I have ever had to do in my life. It was really bad.
So you had to read it, like, for school?
It was a school book, yeah.
Well, okay. Well, of all the man-dying books, I think Tuesdays with Maury takes the cake. Isn't
It's
that
a
Mitch
good
Albom?
one. It is. It's album.
Right. It's Albom.
Album.
It's how you pronounce his name. I know that for a fact because he's also been on ESPN.
Yeah.
And his name is Mitch Albom.
Well, I
He
say
also
album.
wrote The 5 People You Meet in Heaven.
Yeah.
That's a good book, too.
I've never read that one, but Daddy says
Mm-hmm.
it's good. He's a fan.
That's the only book ever that I've read in one sitting. That's a fun story. I was at a friend's house, couldn't sleep. Went, I'll read something for 5 minutes. It'll put me to sleep. Found that book at midnight. Literally finished it at 5 a.m. and went, never mind. I'm just not going to bed. Really good book. It's short, so it's easy to read.
Yeah, it's a short book, but I've heard it's good. I've just never read it.
Well, we got off on a weird tangent there.
Yeah.
If y'all don't like Mitch Albom, skip the past 2 minutes. Just
Retroactively erase them from your memory.
go back and go, never mind, skip.
Contact
And
the
then
Men in Black.
get
Get
to
their
this
little
point.
flashy thingy. It's going to be great.
Well, I guess that's it for this week's Tailgate Tales.
Yeah, it is.
So y'all follow us on all your social medias. Search for Southern Spirits Podcast. Join the community chat on Facebook. We've had a bunch of people request that recently. Get involved. We try to stay involved as much as we can. Join us in the Possum Passel on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Southern Spirits Podcast. Give us $1 or $2 a month. I'm sorry, $1 or $3, I believe, are our levels. And then a couple more.
$1, a $3, a $5, a
Get you
$10,
some
a $20.
stickers, get you some exclusive content. If you give us a bunch of money, you can get a t-shirt, which are almost ready. So
Almost.
Let's be real. We have 2 people we got to get t-shirts to so far.
Yes.
So if you got any fun postcards, send it to our P.O. Box. That's P.O. Box 1743, Hartselle, Alabama. HARTSELLE 35640. And that's it for week number 6. We're basically halfway done. Well, with the regular season. We got more to do after that.
If anybody makes it.
Well, we'll at least do the SEC championship, so be ready for that. We're halfway done. We're kind of halfway done.
Maybe.
Well, anyway, we'll see y'all in week 7.
Bye, y'all.